Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to learn about heat map voting. You probably haven't heard about that before, and it may be other names that you have heard, but this is like voting for something, but not just how much you like it, but how much you do not like it. So let's say you're going to a party and the host says, "Hey, let's order some food. What do you want to get?" Well, I like pizza. Well, I like burritos. Now, there's a bunch of different food items there. Now, you could just say, okay, who wants this, that, but you don't get any agreement. These all everybody's just saying for their own thing. You could just say maybe star approval, which is good. Nothing wrong with star approval. But how about maybe a little bit more nuance in a true heat map? Now, a heat map generally is considered going something like from neutral in the direction of positivity, going to warm, hot, broiling, and in the other direction, cool, cold, frigid. In that 7-point context, we have a heat map. Let's consider now how we might go about creating this heat map in a Google form to allow our members and our attendees to vote. Oh, we can go to here. Give it a name. Choosing lunch. Okay. And just to be simple, we're going to say neutral, which is our good old 4 in the middle. And if someone doesn't vote, they're generally considered neutral. They'd also be considered a 4. So in other words, a 0 is a 4. They're both equivalent. And that's our basic voting system. For the simplicity of running this, we are generally going to set it up. First of all, we want to do this so that anyone, even without Google, can do this. And so we're going to allow, we're going to basically allow editing, but we're not going to require Google sign in. We will just get some piece of information that will allow us to identify the individual voter. And that's only to find if they have voted in such a way that they're done so irregularly or whatever else. That's the only thing we need to do. We want to make sure that they can edit their responses. And the way you edit a response, I will show you in the confirmation page, but that's how it works. Now we will require an email address, but actually let's change that. Let's do this. We can actually do not collect email addresses because that's not what we want to do. We don't want people to have to check their phone and find their email. We actually want them to give us your name. Now, you may think to yourself, well, how's this vote going to be anonymous? Yeah, there has to be someone who is arbitrating this system, but it can be anonymous. We could eliminate this field. It doesn't have to be there. I'm doing it mainly so that we can see what's going on in the internals. But yes, this is not an actual necessary field. And then once we get through this front screen that explains everything, we can start our selection. We're going to have our first selection. Oh, whoops. Choose, we'll call the section choose your food. And then we're going to define a new block. And we're going to make this a linear scale. The linear scale is our representation of the heat map. And we're actually, as I've said, going through 7 stages of heat map. And we're going to call this one Frigid because it is the one. And we're going to call this one Broiling because it is the top. Now, the first person suggested pizza. So pizza becomes our first. Now, one nice thing about Google Sheets is you can copy and then edit, so you don't have to do all that setup over and over again. So let's call this one burrito. Oops, sorry. Two R's in burrito. I always forget if it's two T's or two R's. So burrito, charcuterie. Oh boy, en français. And thank you, charcuterie. And again, that can be from Frigid, sometimes called, and please don't come at me. It's just called a girl dinner. But hey, nothing wrong with that. Guys do it too. That's just what it's called. Also, let's try steak. Hey, maybe there's vegetarians. They're definitely going to vote the Frigid on that one. But the point is, we allow it. And finally, let's say just dessert. That's the option. So voters are now choosing between pizza, burrito, charcuterie, steak, or just dessert. Once we have the poll set up the way we want, and again, you don't have to collect a name. You definitely want to turn off the collecting email address, but you don't have to have a name. And you set up the poll with Frigid to Boiling. This might actually be some other names like definitely negative, definitely positive, or max veto versus a positive or negative veto versus a positive veto, or hate and love. However it's done. But this makes it very explicit that it is the heat map voting. But whatever the name is, as long as it's explained in this way that it is a heat map going from 1 to 7, you pretty much understand how that works. So let's go ahead and publish this form. And we're going to just make sure it's called choosing lunch. And we're going to go publish it. And anyone with a link, publish. Now, we can go ahead and vote. So we are going to not preview. We want to actually get a link, copy. Now we're going to go and vote. So let's paste in our URL. And here we are. We're not signed into Google, but we don't need to be. We just give our name. We're going to call ourselves Fred. Fred wants to vote. Fred, he's not very fond of pizza, but he's okay with it. Burritos, man, does Fred love burritos. Charcuterie, no way, dude. Veto. He's saying that's frigid. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Steak. Yeah, he could do steak. And dessert, he's neutral. So this is how Fred votes. He votes pizza, burrito, charcuterie, steak, and just desserts. And he submits his vote. And in this case, you notice you have two links. Now, if you want to edit your response, you need to save this URL, because without this URL, you will never be able to edit your response. But with this URL, and the best thing to do is just go ahead and bookmark it like that and save it. And that way you can get back to this page and you will have the option to edit your responses. But let's submit another response just for the sake of argument. Let's say this one is Chris. Next. And Chris, not really fond of pizza. Thinks burritos are disgusting. Charcuterie. Chris is okay with charcuterie. Give it a nice 6. Steak. Ambivalent. And desserts. Oh yeah, please. And that's Chris. Let's give another one. Let's say Christina. Christina comes in. She's cool with pizza. Burrito, meh. Charcuterie, definitely. Steak, cool. Desserts, cool. Christina's just a person that could like everything, but she does have some opinions. Another one. Let's say this is Jennifer. And we are going to have Jennifer be on a diet, so she doesn't eat pizza. She's okay with it, but no. And burritos, she thinks is a little healthy, so she's gonna like those. Charcuterie, she just doesn't know how to count those as points, so she's gonna definitely be against that. Steak, she's good with steak because she knows how to count those points. They're very easy. And dessert, definitely not. And finally, let's do me. I like pizza, so I'm gonna give pizza a 6. I like burritos, but I'm not in the mood for one today, so I'm gonna give that a 3. Charcuterie, I actually really like charcuterie. I won't go to broiling, but I think I like that. And steak, hmm, not really in the mood for steak. And dessert, nah, no dessert. Okay, so now we have our votes. Let's go back to our form. And we're back logged into Google in our form, and we can see the responses. Here's Jeffrey, Jennifer, Chris. That it does it in reverse order. Or actually, no, it doesn't do it in any order because I remember I had Fred vote first, then Chris, then Christina, then Jennifer, and Jeffrey. Um, but you can get an idea of how the votes played out, um, whether the questions were answered, and how each individual voted. But we actually need to grind that. We need to process what's going on and all of that. And to do that, we're going to link it to a sheet. Now, creating the sheet by itself right now would be too technical. I already have a sheet that can do the work. Once we have our votes, we can load up our spreadsheet. And I've already designed this spreadsheet so it can do the calculations for us. And we link it back to our Google form. So we go here and we link to sheets and we choose an existing and we do food selection there. And now we're linked and we have all our votes from the election. We just need to make a couple tweaks. We can see that this form is form response 8. So we want to make sure that that name, in fact, we can do it this way. Go here and then rename. Don't rename it, just copy it. And then go to constants and rename there. And so it'll generate the data from that. Now we get totals here. There aren't any, uh, this is not calculated because of, well, I'll explain how those work later. But the point is, this is saying that in the spreadsheet of responses, there's nothing past the column of G, and that there are 5 votes, which you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are used in terms of cutoffs, but in our case, there's a cutoff. What we're saying here is that food choices, we allow only one choice. And now that we only have one choice, we can see that the minimum score to achieve the food that we want is 4, and anything less than 2.5 we cut off. we have a spread of 1, and we have a formal cutoff of 4. Those are more technical, mathematical values. And the other things I want to show in here are this, which is we can tweak the system so that that vote of cool or warm is 1, a vote of cold or hot is 2, but all the way up to broiling or frigid is 4. They are respective. So frigid is -4, cold is -2, and cool is -1, whereas warm, hot, and broiling are exactly 1, 2, and 4. And the max veto concept, that is when you're dealing with a concept of you really don't want people to throw in and just put all their answers as frigid or broiling. You can put a limit on that, because think about that. That's an extreme. That's something that we really should be more mindful of, allowing or forcing people to put more nuance in their point of view. Right now, we're allowing 5. We say that all choices can have vetoes, but we could limit it to 1. And if I recall correctly, we didn't actually have anyone who used more than 1 veto, so that's not going to come into play. But we do have the ability to score. And in that case, we can give one of our members a bonus. Let's say Jeffrey's the organizer, so we're going to give him a plus a 3 and give him a doubling of his power. Everyone else, though, is just a nice person. They come here. We'll give them a little bonus for showing up, though. So we'll give them 150 for showing up. But Jeffrey, we give him an extra 2 points because he's leading it. It's at his place. And, well, I should have a little more power. This is the spreadsheet that you can download from my Google Drive. And as you can see, we just replicated all of the nominations for our party here. We do that before we connect it, and we give them an ordinal numbering, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just to distinguish them when we go to rankings, so that the rankings will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the same way. For you, when you download this spreadsheet, you can add rows by, let's say, adding 4 rows. And continue your numbering and just add more nominations. You always have the option to add as many nominations as you want. Just remember to add just as many rows here for scoring so that you can have those rows scored properly. One thing to remember, though, when you do add rows, you have to copy the formulas. So you have to copy everything after the index just to make sure that the algorithms work. That includes the nomination section. And that's all that matters is the ranking, the index, because it pulls the index out of the nomination and it just says nomination gets such and such. Burrito, I'm not sure why burrito is coming up as not available, because burrito is obviously there, but it was a 0. But what we can see is that if we sort by top score, charcuteries won. Charcuteries had the overall warmest reception, followed by steak, and then pizza with burrito, and just desserts. Yeah, people weren't really into that. You can also see with this voting system internally that 60% or 3 of the 5 people voted in favor of charcuterie. 3 of the 4 also voted in favor of steak. And 2 of the 4 voted in favor of pizza. Now, notice the burrito, 3 of the 4 voted in favor of burrito, but burrito got a negative, got a 0 because some people didn't really like burrito and it brought the whole score down. If you just had a positive up-down vote, this is how things would play out. And generally speaking, the top scorer will be the positive vote, but the nuance of the heat map allows things to be more emotionally correct. Because think about it. If we said that burrito had 60%, but people were like meh on burrito or negative some cases, positive, very negative in some cases, and lukewarm in other cases, that wouldn't be a really good selection. Whereas charcuteries, oh my goodness. I mean, let's look at the charcuteries, for instance. One person really, really didn't like charcuteries, but then we've got a 6 that is hot, a 7 that is broiling, then someone that is cold to it, and then a 5, which is warm. And overall, and remember that I gave myself a little bit extra bonus. So with my bonus, it brings the charcuterie up to the top, thanks to a little bit more oomph in my vote. Now that's how heat maps generally work. They allow a positive push and allow it to be very, very strong or not so strong. However hot you want to make your vote, you choose however hot you want to make it. It allows you sort of to internally decide the positive nature. It's very similar to star voting in that respect, except it flips star because it also allows you to have a negative reaction. It allows you to dislike something or really dislike something. That's the beauty of it. It allows you to have a true emotional response, not just yes, no, but strong yes, weak yes, strong no, weak no, lukewarm no. And that's the beauty of the heat map voting system. One last thing I want to say in the heat map voting system is that if you are someone that is just befuddled by the concept of the heat map, after watching this video, you're still kind of confused by what's going on, you can just yes, no. 5 is yes because it's adding 1. 4 is no because it's adding 0. If you consider just an up-down system of the way it used to be, way it is very generally, with a check mark for yes and a no check mark for no, then 5 is your yes, 4 is your no. And that's it. And that's how heat map voting works. Enjoy your charcuterie. This has been Jeffrey Jacobs for Heat Map Voting.